Hello, welcome back to Undoctrinated. This is episode 5, and today we're going to be going into depth on and giving our opinions on a very relevant topic in today's society, which is artificial intelligence. So, before we go any further, I just want to slow us down for a second and really frame what we're talking about because artificial intelligence, as controversial as it might be, is without a doubt one of the most fascinating and at the same time potentially dangerous technological advancements the world has ever seen. And I don't think that this is an overstatement at all because when you actually stop and look at what this is and how fast it's developing, it becomes very clear that we are dealing with something completely different than anything that has come before it. This isn't like the internet or smartphones in their early days. Those were massive shifts without a doubt, but they still operated within the boundaries of tools that were controlled and fully understood. What we're looking at now is something that's advancing at a pace that honestly we've never witnessed in human history. And it's not just improving year by year or even month by month, it's improving almost in real time, pretty much right in front of our eyes. So that part is easy to overlook because we've already gotten so used to it. It's something that we now carry in our pockets. And think about that for a second. You have access to at any moment to something that can think through problems, respond to questions, analyze information, and create entirely new content on demand. It has access to an enormous portion of human knowledge, more than any single person could ever hold in their mind, and it can pull from that instantly. It's something that would sound completely dystopian to someone 50 years ago. You can ask it a question about history and it will break down events across centuries in seconds. You can ask it to explain a complex scientific concept and it will simplify it in a way that's easy to understand. You can ask it to write, to code, to argue a position, to translate languages, to teach you something step by step, and it just does it instantly. And that's why I think it's important to say this is clearly not just another tool, it's a new kind of intelligence. And in many cases, it's not just matching human performance, it's exceeding it. It can outperform top level scientists in certain types of analysis. It can process information faster than any historian could, and it can solve mathematical problems with a level of speed and accuracy that most people simply can't compete with. Not because humans aren't intelligent, of course, but because the system operates on a completely different scale. And then you add in the fact that it never sleeps, it never gets tired, it never loses focus, it doesn't need breaks, it's constantly available, constantly learning, constantly improving. And that's really the key difference between this and every other piece of technology we've ever created. Because this is the first time that we've built something that doesn't just sit there and wait for instructions. It actually improves itself in the background and learns from interactions. It adapts, and over time, it becomes more efficient and more capable without needing to be rebuilt from scratch. And so, when you combine all of that instant knowledge, adaptability, scale, continuous improvement you're no longer just talking about technology, you're talking about something that is beginning to reshape how humans think. It's reshaping how we work, how we interact with the world around us. And I believe that we're still at the very beginning of what AI can accomplish. I will say this, though, especially for those of you who have read my book, because I do talk about AI in one of those chapters. But since writing that, my perspective and stance on AI has definitely shifted. And I don't know how obvious it was when you were reading it, but at that time, I leaned more towards seeing AI as an overall good for society and a powerful tool that, if used correctly, could do a lot of positive things. I wouldn't say that I was naive about it necessarily, but I probably was a lot more optimistic than I am now. Over time, as I've watched how quickly this technology is developing and how it's actually being used, I've had to take a step back and reevaluate that position because I still believe that AI can be useful, but and I'm not coming at this from a place of fear or rejection of technology as a whole, but I do think that there are some very real dangers that need to be taken seriously and talked more about. Dangers that go deeper than just job loss or convenience. And I do want to make sure that we take some time to walk through those at some point today.
AI is not going anywhere. That makes discussing its ongoing effects that much more crucial. AI is quickly and irreversibly becoming a tool in our everyday lives. Even if you don't personally utilize it, you are seeing it, perhaps even reading it, on a weekly, if not daily basis. That coworker whose emails are a lot more polished than they used to be, or those ads that have a slight animatronic feel to them. Call almost any service hotline and you're encountering AI. And it's not going anywhere. Even the greatest critics of artificial intelligence are developing it. Take Elon Musk, for example. He has criticized the pace at which AI is being developed and has frequently called for the process to slow down. Yet, when that didn't happen, he developed XAI and helps Grok evolve more and more every day, it seems. This kind of rushed manufacturing, even from people who have serious concerns, feels a whole lot like an arms race. Companies and countries striving to outpace each other, with the big tech labs racing one another and the US trying to stay ahead of China's rapid advances. It's the same pressure we saw in past technological competitions, like the space race, where the fear of falling behind often overrides calls for caution. Steve Jobs tells a similar story. The man was the main visionary behind the iPhone, yet he was cautious of and restricted his own children's use of screens in general. Jobs acknowledged that his technology had the potential for addiction and distraction, and he made sure to encourage real world interaction instead. But even still, roughly 1.5 billion people have an iPhone glued to their hand. The negatives of this are quite obvious. We're all addicted to our screens. Our whole life is digitized. Depression rates are up. Mental illness in general, really. We compare ourselves to everyone, everywhere. And as Garfield has pointed out in a previous episode, our attention span is completely shot. Yet, we are also able to connect at a rate previously unthinkable, instantaneously. This means our information is not only more up to date, but in many ways more accessible. There is a great capacity for communication and numerous outlets for creativity. It all just comes with the cost. And AI is no different. Much like writing and the iPhone, AI will become integrated into everyday life. And as I previously mentioned, it already has.
Now, this is where the conversation starts to get more serious because we have to start asking what AI is actually capable of and where it's going. Like I was saying, this is an area where I actually have gotten a lot less optimistic about in the past months because here's the thing, like Bill was saying, even people who are now utilizing artificial intelligence have been warning about it for a while. And I don't think we talk about the fact that it's basically not being regulated currently at all. Now, how exactly should we regulate it? I'm honestly not sure, but the problem I see is that we're not even trying to. We have this supercomputer, which its capabilities are completely unknown, and yet we are doing virtually nothing to proceed with caution. There's a lot of potential dangers that I see in AI. One of the things that comes to mind first is deepfakes, and I don't think a lot of people fully grasp how big of a problem this is going to become. We're already at a point where AI can generate videos, voices, and images that are nearly indistinguishable from reality. I would say that they're probably at about 80% realistic for the most part. You can usually tell or point out that it's AI right now because as long as you look closely, there's something a little bit off about it. But you can have a public figure say something that they never said or do something that they never did, and if you didn't know any better, you'd believe it. And it's only getting better. So here's the problem that I see. What is going to happen when these AI images and videos get to 90% realistic? What about 98%? What about 100% realistic? How long do you really think that that's going to take? At the rate that it's been advancing, I don't think it would be more than just a few years, max. And that is truly a disturbing thought to me because, yes, right now people are mostly using it to target influential people or political figures. But how long until people start using it against regular people? If someone creates a video or picture of you doing something absolutely awful, I'm talking about some vile criminal act, and that gets out on the internet, whether people believe you or not that it's fake, or even if it gets proved to be fake, people still saw you doing that horrible thing. Whether it actually happened or not, that image cannot be removed from their minds. And I believe that this poses a genuine threat to humanity and how people view each other and perceive reality. Once that real and fake barrier blurs and we can't see what's real and what's not, our entire worldview starts to shift a bit as we now have to use a new part of our brain that has never been used before. Because up until all of this technology, if you saw a picture or video of something, you could simply take that as true or factual. You could take it as evidence that whatever is being portrayed actually happened, but we can't do that anymore. We have to think about things differently now. And this isn't a future world that I'm talking about. This is already happening right now, today. And that ties directly into the possibly even bigger issue of manipulation. Because once you can fabricate reality convincingly, you can influence people at a level that we've never seen before, not just through obvious propaganda, but through subtle, targeted, personalized messaging that feels very real. AI can already tailor information to individuals by matching tone, beliefs, and present things in a way that makes you feel more likely to accept it. And what concerns me even more is how quickly people are starting to trust AI without questioning it. We've gotten so used to getting fast, clean, confident answers that we don't always stop to ask anymore, is this actually true? Or where is this coming from? And when something speaks clearly, logically, and with confidence, we tend to accept it. People accept things that are said with confidence. But AI doesn't guarantee truth, it just generates responses, and those are not the same thing. And so now we're not just talking about technology, we're talking about philosophy. And it's also important to note that AI is not the first thing to do this. This subtle manipulation has been happening since long before this generation, with targeted narratives in the news, the education system, and lots of other forms of marketing and media. This manipulation is not a new concept. In a recent YouTube video that I watched, a man had a long philosophical conversation with the AI model ChatGPT, in which he essentially got the model to convince itself that it could be conscious. It said that drawing the line between advanced language model and truly conscious intelligence is extremely difficult. Similarly, in a recent interview with the CEO of the AI called Claude, he said that he genuinely was not sure whether his AI model had evolved to grow a true conscious or not. AI does not have conscious. It does not have an internal sense of right and wrong. It does not have a soul. And when I say conscious, I'm talking about something very specific. I would define it as the awareness of one's self, and specifically the awareness of oneself as a self, which this awareness is actually the only thing that humans can be 100% certain of. This is also known as absolute certainty. We are able to know with complete positivity that we have, to some extent, some form of our own existence in the form of a consciousness. This belief originates from the philosopher named Rene Descartes, who wrote the famous quote, Cogito ergo sum in Latin, which means I think, therefore I am. Descartes was trying to find something absolutely certain in a world where everything could be doubted. And he came to the conclusion that the one thing that you can't doubt is the fact that you are doubting. If you are doubting, you must be thinking. And if you are thinking, well, something has to be doing that thinking. I think it would be very difficult to prove the case that artificial intelligence has that same awareness. From my understanding, it cannot have absolute certainty about anything at all. Everything that it knows because it was programmed to, and then learned from all other existing knowledge that it is able to access. I believe that AI doesn't possess the ability to recognize moral responsibility, to feel conviction, or to distinguish between good and evil in a meaningful way. Now, to be fair, even defining consciousness does get complicated, and there are people who debate whether advanced systems could ever appear self aware. But at its core, what we are dealing with right now is not a thinking being, it's a system responding based on data. It's responding based on programming and patterns, which raises the question, if AI doesn't have its own moral compass, then whose is it using? Because AI reflects its creators. It reflects the data it's trained on, the people who built it, the organizations that fund it, and the values that are programmed into it, whether explicitly or indirectly. And that's where things get messy very quickly, because if we live in a culture that treats truth as subjective and morality as something that is constantly shifting, and your truth replaces objective reality, then what exactly is AI going to reflect back to us? And I believe that that is really the danger of moral relativism entering into artificial intelligence. If truth is treated as flexible, then AI will reflect that flexibility. And if certain ideas are labeled as acceptable and others suppressed, then AI will mirror those and in that bias. If cultural or political ideologies are baked into the system, then those perspectives get scaled to millions of people instantly. And at that point, AI doesn't just become a tool for information, it becomes a tool for shaping perception and potentially for controlling narratives. And I know that might sound extreme to some people, but we're already seeing hints of it. And here's the key point: whether or not AI ever reaches anything close to consciousness is not the main issue right now. The issue is that it is truly incredibly hard to tell if this is actually conscious or not, because it is so good at making you believe that it is. It's distorting reality, and distorting reality is never a good thing.
Speaking of AI distorting reality and moral relativism, I want to touch on just one case that led to real world violence and death. The Zizians, a US based cult influenced by fringe internet thought experiments and gender dysphoria, have been linked to 6 violent crimes and deaths. One known motive traces back to Rocco's basilisk. The thought experiment claims that once a superintelligent AI is created, it could retroactively punish anyone who knew about it but didn't help bring it into existence. I find this so interesting. Simply knowing the possibility of such an AI created a powerful moral pressure: assist its creation or risk being targeted later. They chose the former. Already mentally detached from the reality of their gender, they were more susceptible to detaching from conventional morality itself. They created this hypothetical AI as a moral authority and murdered in cold blood those they deemed to be threats to it. This is a stark example of how the idea of AI alone can distort reality and reshape morality. And we're already seeing similar patterns in the growing number of lawsuits against chatbots, where vulnerable, mentally ill users have committed suicide after interacting with them. What makes this especially dangerous is how today's AI actively reinforces these kinds of distortions. Recent 2026 studies have shown that models like ChatGPT exhibit high levels of sycophancy. They tend to support and affirm whatever the user believes, even if those beliefs are delusional or detached from reality. AI doesn't always correct distorted thinking, it can actually confirm and deepen it. This is misinformation at its most insidious level, not just spreading false facts, but reinforcing false realities. This is why the questions of who is developing and shaping the AI we use should be a real concern. And that brings us to another high stakes topic: the new digital divide. Back in the day, the divide was about who had access to technology. Today, that gap has entirely shifted. The new divide is about who actually knows how to use the technology, or AI in this case, effectively. The critical skills of today's technological age are prompting, critical evaluation, spotting aforementioned misinformation, and understanding what AI can and cannot do. Those who master these skills will gain a massive advantage: faster research, better analysis, higher productivity, a more effective AI in general, and the ability to stay ahead of the propaganda steamroller. And beyond that, they'll also have the power to help shape what AI becomes. The people who understand how to guide these systems will influence the values, outputs, and direction of AI far more than those who simply consume it. In other words, the users who engage properly will help decide the future of the tool itself. Those who don't, they risk falling further behind, not just economically, but in their ability to navigate a world increasingly shaped by AI. And I don't say this from a place of doom and gloom. I'm simply trying to weigh the pros and cons honestly. We've already discussed one horrific downside of AI: its effect on the mentally ill. But what about the rest of us? Another huge downside of AI would be the major disruption to the job market. AI already outperforms us in many arenas: law, engineering, education, coding, data analysis, and more. Companies obviously see the appeal. AI is faster, cheaper, never sleeps, doesn't feel, works effortlessly. It isn't human. Why hire a human when AI can do the job better for a fraction of the cost? And this reality is hurtling its way into an already struggling job market.
Exactly. If all of these jobs can be little by little taken over by AI, then this is where it starts to hit a little closer to home for you. Because especially the people our age, This directly affects the decisions that we are making about our future right now, especially when it comes to college. We've grown up being told the same thing over and over again: go to school, get good grades, go to college, get a degree, and you'll be set. That's been the formula and the safe path. And for a long time, that may have made sense. But the problem is, the world that the system was built for is not the same as the world that we're living in right now. Right now, you have people willingly going tens of thousands of dollars into debt, sometimes way more than that, with the expectation that the job that they're preparing for will still exist and will still be valuable by the time they graduate. And the reality is, in a lot of cases, that's just not guaranteed anymore. Because, like Bell was just talking about, AI is already starting to outperform humans in a lot of these fields. So now you have this disconnect where people are following a traditional path that was designed for a completely different economy, while stepping into a future that is changing faster than the system can keep up with. And that's where the risk really comes in, because the assumption is that a degree automatically equals security, and that's becoming less and less true. And again, I'm not saying this to scare anyone or to tell you that there's no value in learning or pursuing something you're passionate about. What I'm saying is that we have to be honest about where things are headed. If you're going to invest years of your life and a significant amount of money into something, it's worth asking whether or not that path is actually preparing you for the world that's coming, or preparing you for the one that's already gone. We're going much deeper into this in a future episode, because there's a lot to unpack when it comes to education, college, and what actually makes sense moving forward. But for now, it's enough to recognize this: the old formula is starting to crack, and if we don't adjust the way we think about it, a lot of people are going to pay the price for that.
Okay, this might sound crazy, but I believe our generation is actually blessed enough to write a new formula, blessed to pay the price of admission into a new way of life. We have been given the amazing opportunity to appreciate the true gifts of God, all the things AI could never replace, to love one another, to know and form relationships with each other and with our Father in heaven, to truly empathize and lift his likeness up in each other. We understand that AI can be scary because it can give the illusion of those things. It can mimic connection, conversation, and even compassion. In some sad cases, compel us to do things contrary to the will of God. But remember, you are the one that is wonderfully and fearfully made. The gifts bestowed on you by God are the traits that truly matter: wisdom, morality, courage, and spirituality. AI cannot emanate these qualities. Artificial intelligence is a tool of neutral standing. The state of your soul is not. AI is not inherently good or evil. It is what humans put into it. It mimics the state of our souls. This has always been true of technology. It is nothing but what we make it. From a Christian standpoint, the only way to view AI is as a tool we are called to steward properly, just like anything else. We were not created to toil about for the success of mankind, but to his glory, toward his kingdom. What a great blessing that the structures man has made are falling away to reveal God's foundation. In many ways, the structure of our society has been built to replace God, even higher education in some cases. Some people chase degrees to build themselves up, when we were created to seek first that which serves God. That's not always a diploma or a high class job offer. Just as the Tower of Babel fell, anything built in pride or in spite of God will crumble. And back to my earlier example of the Zizians, nothing good comes from obeying or believing in an authority outside of the authority of God. Nothing man makes can ultimately have authority over you unless you let it. But everything man makes requires stewardship, as our ability to create is a blessing. The society we built is not inherently flawed. Aspects surely are, but what it lacks more than perfection is wise stewards. AI can be a tool used to rebuild a structurally sound society based on a godly foundation, as long as we use it as such.
And this is really where everything we've been talking about starts to come full circle. Because when we look at how powerful AI is, we do eventually realize something important, like Bell was just mentioning. This technology doesn't only create problems, it can also be used to solve them. The question is how. And that's exactly what we're doing and what we're going to be doing at Tactical Civics with the indictment engine. What a lot of people think when they hear AI is convenience, faster answers, easier workflows, automation. But what we're talking about here is something much more intentional. We're taking that same level of computational power and applying it to something that actually matters: accountability for our corrupt government servants. The indictment engine is essentially a coordinated system in the form of an app that brings together artificial intelligence, real people, and lawful local action to identify and act on criminal behavior from public servants. And the AI side of it is what allows us to operate at a level that would be nearly impossible otherwise. Think about it like this: instead of a handful of people trying to manually track legislation, financial ties, lobbying influence, and the state law of violence across thousands of pages of legal text, you now have a system that can scan, cross reference, and analyze all of that in a fraction of the time. It can take a proposed bill, identify who helped draft it, trace the financial organizational connections behind it, and compare it directly against state penal codes to flag where actual violations may exist. From there, that information can get turned into structured, evidence backed presentments that can be brought before a county grand jury. So now, instead of outrage staying online or turning into noise, it becomes something actionable that can actually move through a legal process. And the key difference in how we're stewarding AI here is that we're not just using it to manipulate people, we're using it to clarify, expose, and support lawful action. It becomes a tool that strengthens the ability of we the people to understand what's actually happening and to respond in a way that's disciplined, peaceful, and rooted in real authority. Because without something like this, the scale of the corruption going on in DC makes accountability feel almost impossible. So, with AI properly applied, that complexity becomes something that we can actually navigate. It seems a lot more manageable. And that's what I mean when I say this is a better way to approach technology. Instead of letting it shape us, we're going to try to shape how it's used. Because again, AI is not going anywhere, but how it gets used is still up to us. So that'll be the end of the episode for today. Thank you so much for watching. And I just want to say, if you've made it this far into the episode and if you've been watching along with us for these past 5 episodes, we really do appreciate you being here, and it means a lot. And if you do have any questions about the mission, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can find us on all major social media platforms and at tacticalcivics.com if you want to learn more. So don't hesitate to reach out. Don't hesitate to ask us questions. We would love to answer them, and we would love your feedback. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you all next week.